Emma, stop being dramatic. Your sister would never do that. My mother's dismissive voice echoed through our kitchen as I tried, once again, to explain why my insulin readings weren't making sense. I'm 24, have been managing my type 1 diabetes since I was 12. And for the first time in years, my numbers were dangerously erratic. Standing there, clutching my glucose meter with shaking hands, I watched my sister Sophie smirk behind our mother's back. At 20, she'd always been the perfect child, straight A's, popular, and most importantly in our family's eyes, healthy. Mom, I know my body. These readings don't make sense. Yesterday my sugar was perfect before dinner. I took my usual dose, and 2 hours later I was dangerously low. Today, the same dose sent me skyrocketing. My voice trembled with frustration and fear. Maybe you're just stressed about your new job, Sophie chimed in, her voice dripping with false concern. You know stress affects blood sugar. I did know that. I knew everything about managing my condition. I had to, but this was different. These swings were too extreme, too unpredictable. And they only started happening when Sophie moved back home after dropping out of college. I'm keeping my insulin in my room from now on, I announced, gathering my supplies. Now you're just being ridiculous, Mom snapped. What's next? Accusing your sister of trying to poison you? She's your family. Family. The word felt hollow. Family was supposed to protect you, not gaslight you about your own medical condition. But in our house, keeping up appearances always mattered more than facing uncomfortable truths. That night, I double-checked my insulin pens before taking my evening dose. Everything looked normal, but something felt off. I'd been a diabetic long enough to trust my instincts. After injecting, I set up my phone to record my room while I slept, something I'd never thought I'd have to do in my own home. The next morning, my blood sugar was through the roof, despite taking my usual dose. Checking my phone footage, my heart stopped. At 2 a.m., a shadow had crept into my room, moving directly to where I kept my insulin. Sophie, thinking I was asleep, had switched my insulin pens. With trembling hands, I called my endocrinologist, Dr. Martinez. She'd been my doctor since my diagnosis and was the only person who'd always taken me seriously. These numbers are concerning, Emma, she said after I sent her my readings. Can you come in today? I want to run some tests. At the clinic, I showed Dr. Martinez the video. Her usually calm demeanor shifted to something more serious. Emma, tampering with insulin can be lethal. This isn't sibling rivalry, it's attempted murder. The blood tests she ordered weren't just routine checks. She was looking for evidence of insulin manipulation, dilution, contamination, anything that could explain my erratic readings. Keep detailed records of everything, she advised. And Emma, don't take any insulin you haven't personally obtained from the pharmacy. I'm calling one in right now. Pick it up yourself. When I got home, Sophie was in the kitchen with Mom, both laughing over some social media post. The scene looked so normal, so deceivingly peaceful. How could they not see what was happening? How was your appointment? Mom asked casually. Fine, I replied, gripping my new insulin pens tightly. Just routine. Sophie's eyes flickered to the pharmacy bag in my hand, something dark passing across her face. Still convinced someone's messing with your medicine? She asked sweetly. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Dr. Martinez's office. The preliminary results were in, and they needed me to come back immediately. Something showed up in the tests, something that couldn't be explained by normal diabetes management. Actually, I said, meeting Sophie's gaze steadily, we're about to find out exactly what's been happening to my insulin. Dr. Martinez ran some interesting tests today. The color drained from Sophie's face, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. Mom, oblivious as ever, just sighed. Emma, enough with the accusations. Your sister loves you. I grabbed my keys, my hand steady for the first time in weeks. We'll see about that, Mom. We'll see exactly how much she loves me when the lab results come back. As I drove to the clinic, my phone exploded with texts from Sophie. It was just a joke. You're overreacting. Please don't do this to me. But I didn't respond. After weeks of gaslighting and fear, of being told I was paranoid and dramatic, justice was finally within reach. Dr. Martinez had proof, real medical evidence that couldn't be dismissed as sibling rivalry or stress. My sister had messed with the wrong thing. She might have fooled our parents, but she couldn't fool science. And now, everything was about to change. The clinic's fluorescent lights felt harsh as I sat in Dr. Martinez's office, staring at the lab results spread across her desk. Each page told a story more horrifying than the last. The analysis shows significant tampering, Dr. Martinez explained, her voice professional but edged with concern. We found traces of water dilution in some samples, and more disturbing, household cleaning products in others. Emma, this wasn't just manipulation. This was deliberate poisoning. My hands trembled as I picked up one of the reports. The clinical language couldn't mask the truth. My sister had been systematically trying to harm me. I've already contacted the police, Dr. Martinez continued. This is a criminal matter now. Detective Anderson will be here shortly to take your statement. As if on cue, my phone started ringing. Mom. I declined the call, but the text started immediately. Emma, come home right now. Sophie is crying. How could you involve the police? She says it wasn't that serious. You're tearing this family apart. Dr. Martinez noticed my distress. Your mother's reaction is unfortunately common in these situations. Families often want to minimize or deny abuse, especially when it comes from within. They never believed me, I whispered, fighting back tears. Every time I tried to tell them something was wrong, they made me feel crazy. The detective arrived shortly after, a stern-looking woman with kind eyes. She reviewed the medical evidence while I recounted everything: the erratic blood sugar readings, the video footage, Sophie's suspicious behavior, and our parents' dismissal of my concerns. This is serious, Detective Anderson stated. Insulin tampering can be lethal. We'll need to bring your sister in for questioning immediately. Just then, my phone buzzed with a text from Sophie that made my blood run cold. If you do this, I'll tell them about the accident last year. The accident. My stomach churned as I remembered. Last year, Sophie had been driving drunk and hit a parked car. I'd helped her cover it up, convinced by her tears and promises to get help. Now she was using it against me. I showed the text to Detective Anderson. Classic manipulation tactic, she noted. She's trying to maintain control. But Emma, whatever happened last year doesn't justify attempted murder. By the time I left the clinic, multiple officers were headed to our house with a warrant. Dr. Martinez had admitted me to the hospital for monitoring, concerned about potential lasting effects from the tampering. You'll be safe here, she assured me, and we'll monitor your blood sugar properly. In my hospital room, the text from my parents continued. Dad, this is ridiculous. We raised you better than this. Mom, the police are here. How could you do this to your sister? Sophie, I hate you. You've ruined everything. I turned off my phone, exhausted by their collective denial. The hospital staff had strict instructions: no visitors without my explicit approval. For the first time in weeks, I felt safe. Hours later, Detective Anderson visited with an update. Sophie had been arrested, and the evidence they found in her room was damning. She kept detailed notes about her tampering, almost like a scientific experiment. They also found research on her computer about insulin overdoses and their effects. She's facing serious charges, the detective explained. And your parents may face charges too for endangerment since they dismissed clear warning signs. My parents, despite everything, part of me ached for them. They created this situation with years of enabling Sophie while dismissing my concerns. Their perfect daughter had turned out to be capable of calculated attempted murder, and their dramatic diabetic daughter had been telling the truth all along. Dr. Martinez came by later to check my readings. Your numbers are stabilizing, she said, reviewing my chart. But Emma, we need to talk about long-term safety plans. You can't go back to that house. I nodded, already having reached the same conclusion. My friend Olivia had offered me her spare room, and my job could be done remotely. I had options, good ones that didn't involve living in fear. I know, I replied. I never thought it would come to this. That my own sister would. Family abuse is complex, she said gently, but you did the right thing by speaking up. You may have saved your own life. That night, alone in my hospital room, I finally read the last text from Sophie before turning off my phone. Nobody will believe you anyway. They never have. But she was wrong. The blood tests had believed me. The police had believed me. Dr. Martinez had believed me. And finally, most importantly, I had believed myself. 6 months later, I sat in a courtroom, watching Sophie plead guilty to attempted first-degree murder. Her designer outfit and tearful performance couldn't hide the truth anymore. Not from the judge, not from our parents, and certainly not from me. The prosecutor presented the evidence methodically, my medical records, the contaminated insulin samples, Sophie's detailed notes, and the video footage. But it was her internet search history that finally shattered our parents' denial. How long to die from insulin overdose? Can insulin poisoning look natural? How to tamper with diabetes medication? Mom sobbed in the gallery while Dad sat stone-faced. They'd finally been forced to see their perfect daughter for who she really was. The psychological evaluation had revealed what I'd suspected all along. Sophie had been jealous of the attention my diabetes required, even though that attention had mostly consisted of medical appointments and careful monitoring. Your Honor, Sophie's attorney began. My client was suffering from severe mental health issues. But the judge cut him off. Miss Andrews, your premeditation is clearly documented. This wasn't a cry for help. It was a calculated attempt to end your sister's life. When Sophie was sentenced to 15 years with mandatory psychiatric treatment, I felt no joy, just relief. The nightmare was finally over. Outside the courthouse, my parents approached me for the first time since the arrest. Emma, Mom started, her voice breaking. We should have listened. We failed you, Dad added, looking years older than he had 6 months ago. I took a deep breath, remembering my therapist's words about setting boundaries. Yes, you did. You failed me for years. Every time you dismissed my concerns, every time you called me dramatic, you showed me that my safety meant nothing compared to keeping up appearances. We can change, Mom pleaded. We're in counseling now. Please give us another chance. I looked at them, really looked at them. They seemed smaller somehow. Their perfect family facade crumbled to dust. Maybe someday, I said finally, but right now, I need space to heal. My new life was everything I'd never dared to hope for. Living with Olivia had shown me what real support looked like. My blood sugar stabilized, and Dr. Martinez praised my improved numbers at every checkup. You're thriving, she said during my latest appointment. I'm proud of you, Emma. I'd started a support group for survivors of family medical abuse, surprised to find how many others had similar stories. We met weekly, sharing our experiences and healing together. Some days were harder than others, but I was no longer alone. The letter arrived 3 months after the sentencing. Sophie's handwriting was as perfect as ever. Dear Emma, I'm working with my therapist to understand why I did what I did. They say I have severe narcissistic tendencies and sociopathic behaviors. I always hated how your diabetes made you special. I wanted you gone. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it, but I am sorry. Sophie. I showed the letter to my therapist, who helped me process my complicated feelings about it. You don't owe her a response, she reminded me. Your healing doesn't require her participation. She was right. I filed the letter away and focused on my future. My blog about diabetes management had gained a following, and I've been invited to speak at medical conferences about patient advocacy. My story was helping others find their voice. Last week, I moved into my own apartment. As I arranged my insulin supplies in their designated spot, I realized I no longer checked for tampering or set up cameras. The fear had finally lifted. My phone buzzed. A text from Olivia. Housewarming party this weekend. The whole support group wants to celebrate. I smiled, typing back a quick yes. Before, family had meant people who hurt you and called it love. Now I had a chosen family who supported and believed me. That evening, I sat on my new balcony, watching the sunset. My glucose monitor showed perfect numbers, and for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. The truth had cost me my birth family, but it had given me something far more valuable: freedom. Dr. Martinez's words from the trial echoed in my mind. Sometimes the bravest thing we can do is speak our truth, even when those who should believe us don't. I learned that truth might hurt, but secrets could kill. My sister had tried to silence me permanently, but instead, she'd helped me find my voice. And now that voice was stronger than ever. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal, and speaking up isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's the only way to stay alive. I survived not just Sophie's attempts to kill me, but years of gaslighting and dismissal. Now finally, I was doing more than surviving. I was living. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone else to validate my truth. I knew who I was, what I'd survived, and where I was going. That was more than enough.